What do you need? No, really, what do you need? Take a moment, think about it. Do you need to change how you're sitting in your chair? Take off a jacket? Say something really important to the person on your left? Go ahead. That question, what do you need, is my least favorite. It's vulnerable, it's uncomfortable, it's scary, and yet somehow that's the question I've been asked the most these last 12 months. A few years ago, I was sitting in a building in Denver for eating disorder treatment. I didn't talk very much there, but I wrote furiously into this black notebook. People would frequently ask why I wouldn't talk in therapy groups when I clearly had enough things to say to fill that notebook, and I didn't have a good answer. I knew that what I was doing in my eating disorder wasn't really working, but I also didn't know what I needed to make recovery work. So, there I sat, writing for months until it started to feel okay to speak, and that whole time I grew more and more infatuated by those around me who did use their voices. There was this girl, Hallie. She sat in a red chair in the corner of the hallway, and the first time I heard her talk was when she told me she wouldn't go to a therapy group because she didn't come to treatment to make friends. The second time we talked was when I dragged her down the hallway to one of those therapy groups because if I had to go, then so did she. The more I got to know her, though, the more I learned about who she was and who she wanted to be. Hallie told me she wanted to go to Germany. She wanted to play the cello, sing Kodaline songs, wear her Angela Scott shoes. She wanted to be the German word for perfect artwork that she spent months trying to teach me to say, and to this day, I still can't get right. She was the kind of person that when I talked to her, I knew I needed to be her friend, and I'm so lucky she let me. One crisp autumn morning during program, she called me, insisting she find me and tell me about this wild therapy session she had just had. I was outside in the leaves, writing into my black journal about my own therapy session. As luck would have it, my therapist had asked me what I needed, and the thought of owning whatever that was felt too overwhelming. So I went quiet. Hallie found me. She ran over, started talking so intently, but realized I was in my own world. Caught herself, and then said what was the one thing I didn't want to hear. No one was asking me to rescue myself, but I needed to participate in my own rescue. That phrase, participate in your own rescue, was something her therapist would often say, and then she would say to me. I dismissed it a lot. I was participating in my own rescue. I wanted to be the only one participating in it. But I think that's kind of the thing. On one hand, there was something to be said of taking initiative in my own recovery, not waiting for others to do it for me. But on the other hand, as Hallie often reminded me, it meant that there was room for others. This didn't have to be a me problem. For so long, I'd held this idea that I would figure it out on my own. I might not have known what I needed, but if I was perfect at everything, I couldn't need anything. Now, there is a second layer to this too. I want you to think back to the last time you told someone you were struggling with something. What was the first question they asked you? I'm willing to bet it was, what do you need? Or, what can I do to support you? There you have it. My least favorite question. Here's the thing. I've never had trouble identifying what I want to need. That one's easy. It fits into a neat little box. When I was in Denver, I wanted to need my therapist to ask me the perfect question and jumpstart my perfect recovery. I wanted to need the way to get through that part of my life to be talking about things without having to actually feel them. But that's not how it works. What I want to need and what I do need are usually two very different things. When I left Denver, Hallie and I would talk almost every day, and I left each of those conversations admiring her ability to own whatever it was that she needed. Not what she wanted to need, but what she actually did need. The thing, though, was that at the end of every single one of those conversations, Hallie would pause, and she'd say, "What do you need today, Mads?" If we're being completely honest, I never answered that question. She'd ask, I'd evade it in some way, she'd call me out on it, we would have a laugh. But I promised to let her know if I ever thought of something. So, thinking back on it, what I needed during that part of my life was time. What I needed from Hallie specifically was just friendship. I didn't think I would ever need to say it, but what I really needed was more time with Hallie. She passed away in August of last year. I received a text from a friend telling me this while I was at work, and I completely lost it. The first thing I wanted to do was go hide in the bushes behind me, to be in denial alone, to be angry alone, be sad alone, be confused alone. I didn't want to be having so many intensifying emotions, but I really just didn't want other people to see me having them. So I did what I wanted to have work. I talked about it, enough in therapy to stop crying all the time, and I journaled into that black notebook a lot. I really wanted that to be enough. I returned to school that fall thinking that participating in my own rescue meant acting as if nothing had happened. Or if it had, I was over it, I was fine now. When I returned from her funeral, my friends asked me what I needed, and I told them, nothing, I was fine. I really wanted to be fine. That was a hard semester, and as it continued, I found myself participating less and less in my classes. It got to the point where one of my professors actually stopped me after class, asked what she could do, and I was so tired of pretending I could hold my little world together alone that I, in tears, asked to postpone my final by just a couple of weeks. She told me to take whatever time I needed, and then made it a point to tell me to talk to my people. Talk to my people? That wasn't what I'd wanted to need. I'd wanted to need logistical help moving my exam, nothing more. But it was in that moment I realized maybe she was right. So I texted my mock trial coach, and I asked to sit on the couch in his office and cry, because the world felt too heavy to keep trying to be in it alone. None of this has been a one and done type of deal. As much as I wish that losing Hallie had been a uniquely painful but isolated experience, it wasn't. As much as I wish that I could say, feel my feelings on a checklist, check it off once and be done, that's not how it works. I'm reminded of this frequently. Let's just take this last August. I was trying to fly back to school, but my flight was canceled. That happens. In order to rebook my flight, I needed to check my calendar, and the moment I swiped to the next day, I saw visit Hallie in New York City. We'd picked an arbitrary day many months after we left Denver to reunite in the city and have a girls' weekend, and I hadn't realized that day was here. I pushed down whatever feelings were coming up, right up until I got a text notification telling me I'd been rerouted through Denver. Those feelings I'd pushed away moments earlier came bubbling up, and I found myself crying in an airport. I was alone, which is what I'd wanted this whole time, right? But being alone didn't stop me from having feelings. What do you do when what you want to work, what you really want to work, just doesn't? I paused, and I asked myself my least favorite question. What did I need? I needed to call a friend who'd also known Hallie, who I hoped would get it. I needed to say a silent "seriously" up to Hallie, who I knew had orchestrated this whole thing. And I needed to order a cheese quesadilla because that sounded good and was starting to feel okay to admit. I think that is what Hallie meant when she told me I needed to participate in my own rescue. No, I, of all people, did not need to be more exclusionary about who I let in. I didn't have to try to do this all on my own, but I needed to help others help me. I'm here today because a lovely human in Denver decided to let me in on her journey of participation in her own rescue so that I could do the same. I didn't want to hear it then. And there are certainly days when I don't want to hear it now. But Hallie was right. I didn't have to rescue myself, and you don't either. And we still need to participate in our own rescues. Thank you.